true crime Grapevine fans. It's me, Patty Lee, your dyslexic armchair detective, and this is my traditional long-form upload. What I'd like to tell everybody is, first of all, hi if you're new. I'm Patty Lee, and what I do is watch all the YouTubers that I possibly can, and then I'll report back to you on what the facts seem to be, what the gossip on the grapevine is between all the YouTubers and everybody else talking. And then I give you some of my own speculation, as it were. So I'm inviting you to be Patty's partners in crime, true crime, here on the grapevine. I usually also have a drink, and this episode, which is my 39th upload, not live, upload, we're having a Moscow Mule, one of my favorite now, inspired by the unfortunate events at Idaho, Moscow, but a Moscow Mule, ginger beer or ginger ale, a shot of vodka, I use Tito's, and a shot of lime juice over ice. It's pretty simple, and it's clean, and it gets the job done. So pour yourself something, coffee, tea, Moscow Mule, a shot of whiskey, whatever you like, and relax so I can tell you what's been going on in true crime this week. All right? Also, if you could like and subscribe, that would be great. You don't have to. It is free. And you guys know how to do all the YouTube things, right? So what is happening on the 29th episode? I will tell you after one more quick thing is I have been going live since the 2nd of January every night to tell you what happened that day. So while it doesn't look like I've been uploading, I'm actually I'm doing lives which don't show up as uploads. So if you'd like to know more about what happened, when it happened, please check out in the YouTube, if you go to my channel, the True Crime Grapevine, you can hit lives and you'll get the daily deets. So if you want daily deets, I was going live at 11ish Eastern Standard Time. Next week I'm going to try to go live between 8:30 and 9 just to see if more people might be awake at that time, and because we're trying to get that engagement up. All right, so let's, as I like to say, I have my little, let's unpack, see my literal joke there, what's been going on this week. I'm going to tell you a quick overview. I'm going to try to time myself, and the quick overview will take hopefully only 25 minutes from right now. And then I'm going to upload each of the cases I talked to you about. There'll be an upload this next coming week more in depth about what I know right now. So today that I'm taping is Sunday, January 15th. My last upload was in December. It's been a long time. It's been almost about a month. Now, like I said, daily shows live since the 2nd. But if you're catching up, let's all catch up. What we have this week. Athena Bromfield. We have 2 missing kids. One out of Oklahoma. Athena Bromfield. She is 4. She is still missing. There have been 2 arrests in her case. Anna Walsh, 39. Still missing technically, although we've seen lots of biohazard evidence found that would indicate otherwise. Medina Corcoran. She's a 12-year-old from North Carolina, a 6th grader. Unfortunately, it's a new case to me. It took her mom, and we've heard this story before. This is unfortunately rather common, similar to the Harvey Montgomery case, the Serenity case. It took her mom 33 days to report her missing. 3 weeks. Not good. She is from, like I said, North Carolina. So, and then we're going to talk about the Idaho 4. We'll review what's going on there. mostly it's what everybody's saying is going on because, there's been a court gag order. But I'll tell you what everybody's saying, and some of it is crazy. We'll talk about what's happening court-wise in the Murdaugh case, in the Valadabel case, in the Lalani Simon case, the Richard Allen Delphi murder case. He's the suspect in that. Larry Miliete is in the midst of his preliminary hearing to see if he will go to trial on his wife's no body unaliving allegations. That's in around San Diego, California. And then we have a celebrity case to tell you about. There's been sentencing. So on these long forms, what I do is I like to stack it, telling you how sort of putting cases also in the adjudication process. So we kind of like, it's true crime like edutainment, because like we might as well learn as we're sort of watching these cases. And so if I put it in the order of like from the crime occurring to the investigation to arrest to when then we start having the court system, hearings, arraignments, prelims, actual trials, and then sentencing. So, and if there's any appeals, oh my goodness. So that's sort of how I like to organize the show. So, number one, the Athena Brownfield case is a 4-year-old missing out of Cyril, Oklahoma. We just found out that this was occurring because a postal worker found her older, like by a year, sister. Tuesday night, wandering around. And then they did some investigation and found there should have been another child in the house. That child was missing. That is Athena. She was first reported as being 3, but she is 4. The problem is that now they're looking at waterways. It's been cold there at night. It's been now almost a week. The 2 people who have been arrested are her caretakers, which I find interesting because the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigations won't clarify that. And they said that it is out there on social media. So if anybody wants to put it in the comments below, that would be great. I would like to hear what the grapevine of the internet said. I didn't run across it yet myself, but apparently the relationship was explained. These people, caretakers, either apparently, now the grandmother, the paternal, so the 2 girls' father's mother has spoken and said she was very upset, and obviously they're devastated. We haven't heard from the father. We haven't heard from the mother. We don't know how these people got these children. If it was like, I'm also getting vibes of like the West Boys out of Bakersville, California 2 years ago. It would have been 2 years this past Christmas. People, it's strange that people end up with kids who aren't their own anyway, so they made an effort to have these children in their care, and then something happens. The woman was arrested for 2 counts of neglect at first. Then that was Thursday. Friday, her boyfriend, I think it was her husband, was arrested in Arizona. She actually had gone with a boyfriend. That's what to a hotel and was snapping pictures of her great night out. This is when these 2 little kids are somehow all by themselves. Or one has been hurt and the other was left outside. We don't exactly know what happened. We do know that the husband was arrested. So her name is Alyssa Adams. He is, I believe, Ivan, but spelled with an O-N, Adams, 36, in Arizona. And I think he's been arrested on murder charges. I will check that out when I do my little individual one. But so that is what's going on with that. Our second missing child case is Mandalina. I'm going to say her name. It's Cayorcan, Corian. She was last seen December 15th on a bus camera, like getting off a bus from school. Fine. And then nothing. No hearing, nobody's, she didn't go back to school before the break. In fact, when it was time to go back to the school was contacting her mom, and she had to speak to a school resource officer, and then suddenly, oh yeah, she remembered her daughter was missing. And we know it was missing since when? Well, about 3 weeks. So we'll hear more about that. Unfortunately, I fear to hear what we're going to hear, but similar, unfortunately, when children go missing and the caretakers or parents don't report that missing, and I believe the mom is in her 30s, the stepfather is 60, and they did go and look on the property. They are in trouble for not reporting a missing child. So if you've listened to these cases enough, we know what happens. What happens is the police get the suspected person on something so that they can hold them and then look further and see if the charges are what they think they are, but they immediately sort of protect the environment and other children. So we will hear more about that, and I probably don't think it's going to be good. It's a new case to my uploads, but we've been talking about it on live the whole time I've been live because it happened right January 2nd. 3rd, 4th was when this started rolling out, which was Anna Walsh. She's 39 years old. I don't know if I think she was an immigrant from Serbia. Her mom is still in Serbia. She comes into the story. She's from Cohasset, Massachusetts, which on our live, one of the chatters called and said, I think it was KCT, lives in Massachusetts, and she said, it's a very well-to-do area. So immediately this woman is reported missing. We heard from her husband at her job when she didn't show up. She commuted from Cohasset, Massachusetts, flew to Washington, D.C., and she was doing high-powered real estate there. Her husband reported that she got an emergency call the night, the early hours of January 1st. That she took a ride share to the airport, and he hadn't heard from her, which wasn't unusual. They have 3 boys, 2, 4, and 6, I think. They said 3 kids between 2 and 6, so I guess there could be twins. But between the ages of 2 and 6, 3 boys. Her phone could not be found. They found it, actually, it was pinging in their house. Oh, it was under one of their son's pillow, which is weird that she ran out of town to do business and didn't take her phone with her. What else we found out was weird was that there was no documentation of a rideshare, no documentation of her taking a flight, having planned to take a flight, buying tickets to take a flight, being in the airport at all, January 1st or 2nd. In fact, her flight, we learned, was supposed to be for January 3rd because she was going back to work then. And so it was on that Wednesday that her company called the police and said, we fear she is missing. And they checked out her apartment in D.C. The car that she used while she was in D.C. was there. She had not shown up at that place of residency that she stayed while she was in town. And then we've heard things that, like, the people that she worked with in D.C., she was going out with sometimes and saying, like, she wasn't happy with their marriage. She was planning, on making a break. We found out all about the husband, his background, very sketch. I'll tell you in the extended little extra version of this case. Horror story is what it is. He seems to have been labeled and diagnosed as being a sociopath, which would be an antisocial personality disorder if you were using the DSM-5. That means he has no empathy, would lie to get what he wants and not feel bad about it because, it's all game. And these people tend to be liars. They tend to have problems with the law because they don't follow the rules because the rules are stupid. Why do that? They don't have that social contract feeling. Anyways, he was apparently committed into a private institution for 6 to 7 years. He had a falling out with his father because he stole from his father hundreds of thousands of dollars from the sale of a house that he was supposed to be doing a deal with him, but instead he got the cashier's check and took off. Then when his dad died, he tried to say there was no will because he destroyed the will. And he gets caught on all of this, but in the meantime, fraud, fraud, fraud. Oh, and he was at home and not supposed to be going anywhere, although we found out he did, because he was in the middle of a federal lawsuit for trying to sell Andy Warhol paintings that he had gotten the originals from the owner, the seller of them, who was in South Korea. Took pictures, put it on the internet. Somebody saw the pictures. It had all this provenance. It had, it showed that there were stickers saying that it had been looked at by the Andy Warhol people that say, yes, it is a Warhol. Sent them out to California. The paintings they weren't the same paintings. Didn't look the same. They weren't the same. And then they found out that, oh, shocker. They found out, it's a fake. So then we find out that he did sell the originals. So basically he sold the originals twice and sent fake ones out to California. Somewhere overseas the originals went. So he owed, the man paid him from California $80,000. But because, so the transaction was over the internet. So that's wire fraud, different state, interstate wire fraud, fraud of a certain level, very expensive. And then, so that's, as you can see. So, tricked his dad out of money. When his dad was dead, tried to trick the real heirs out of the money. Lied about a very expensive art. We also found out that he and his wife had a domestic violence situation before they even got married. And somebody, I'll talk about in a longer thing, but we're not going to victim shame, and we don't always know what's going on and why people continue with the relationship. But just say there are a lot of red flags that this guy was not right. Allegedly, which is just my opinion. He is innocent until proven guilty, as are all these suspects. But his name is Brian Walsh. He's Brian with an I. Now, the next case that I need to catch you up on, and again, you guys, if you want specifics and details, please go check out all my lives from this past, since the past 2 weeks. I did a live almost every night. I'm not going to do them the weekend anymore. I'm just going to do them Monday through Friday when court's in session and there's more specific news to talk about, and then I'll upload after the weekend. But the next case that has to do with another Brian is, the Idaho 4, Brian Koberger, sorry. What do we know so far? So this past week, after he was extradited, he had his preliminary, first he had just a show up in court where they gave him then the affidavit saying what the police, how they arrested him based on probable cause. He could not see that, nor could his lawyers, until he was actually in the state of Idaho and had gone to court. And then it was released to everybody, slightly redacted with some things, but a lot of information that everybody's been digging through. And boy, have they been digging. And then, then they've been making suppositions, things. That's enough to keep people busy for a couple of weeks. But we found out this past Thursday, the 12th, January 12th, he was in court. Now, he and his lawyer, that was to talk about the preliminary hearing and set that up. Not going to be until June 26th. And again, when I do the more specific, dedicated load for this case, and I talked about it in all my lives, if you'd like to go watch them. Oh my goodness. Yeah, so it's going to be a while till we hear anything, and the gossip that's come out about the Idaho 4 case and Brian is insane. But one of the things that I think could throw a wrench, so everybody's like, he left the sheath that was in the affidavit, and he's such an idiot, that's what had his touch DNA on it. This must have been his first time, and he thought he was so smart, and he's not. And well, all that may be true, because we don't know specifically if it's his first time, if it's even him, right? Because he's innocent until proven guilty. But we don't know why that sheath was left there. It didn't say the sheath was covered in blood. It sounded like it was just put right by Maddie, like almost placed. I don't know how he dropped it, because if you pull your knife out of a sheath, it should be, it attaches to your waistband. So it seems odd to carry a knife sheath and then sort of like fuddle around with it before and then go like, excuse me, now I'm going to stab you. So was it left to throw people off because it said, United States Marine? Did he not use an actual K-bar, but he wanted them to think, and he just somehow, maybe he sweated and somehow he forgot to wipe off the, what do you call it? Where he touched it to unsnap the knife. We don't know, but we will probably hear a lot more about that once we get further into evidence and into the court, right? But right now we don't know anything but was in the affidavit. And please remember, right, an affidavit by the prosecutor is one-sided. This is what we think you did. You don't get any back and forth with defense until it starts getting into litigation. So we have to take everything with that idea in mind. The cops want to get him. I mean, the cops think this is the guy. And from what we know, it sure sounds like it. But again, we only know what they're saying. In a court of law, you can hear things that make you go, wait a minute, that's not right. So we don't know. Again, he is innocent until proven guilty. But boy, does it look bad for him. The scuttlebutt was that there was a post, and it sounds as if it was from one of his sisters, because they mentioned you're making fun of our family, and they mentioned making fun of memes with Brian and our father, which would obviously be one of his siblings. Could that be a complete hoax? Yes. We know clicks, content people need. When there's nothing else happening, they create it. So we'll take it with a grain of salt. But it did mention that Brian was into drugs again, but it was like, you'll find out. Basically, the post was like, you'll find out he was doing cocaine with this security guard, and basically the security guard did it. Now, is this Brian working through his sister to set up for somebody else? Remember when he was caught, he said, did you arrest anybody else? Is he creating the situation? We don't know. And we do know on December 15th, we do know somebody was shot in Pullman, Washington. He was a veteran. He had PTSD. He had threatened his roommates. The SWAT team came. He was shot. He seems to be named as a security guard. I don't know if that's accurate. We'll have to wait and see. But that doesn't mean, oh my gosh, Brian had a co-conspirator. And that's, they want to, they're keeping his affidavit sealed. Are they keeping it sealed for a reason? That's what the big concern is. Because they stated, they sealed not his affidavit, the search warrant to his apartment and office, I believe. And they said it was because of public safety concerns. Okay. So why would the public not feel safe or be safe? I mean, unless they're proposing perhaps it pointed towards a second person. Maybe even Brian left a note saying somebody, somebody is setting me up, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. Or it mentions a second person and they don't know who the second person is and they're still looking, because they also said it was sealed so as not to hurt an investigation that's still active, basically. So that post would kind of make sense. Again, we're hearing all kinds of things about this was Brian, but we don't know that because it hasn't been in a court of law where you have a forensic computer person saying this person IP address, like we know that their computer interacted with this site. Instead, people are saying, well, there's an email that is connected to Brian that is on this other site, and that site is connected to this site, and it's all the same person, and therefore it must be Brian. I don't know, but I think in the weeks and months, and probably a year to follow, when this goes to court, we're going to find out that a lot of this stuff that's going on, that, oh my God, it's Brian, will not be Brian. And again, I blame the 24-hour. I don't blame any creator, and I don't blame any news person, or it is the zeitgeist of the 24-hour news cycle that everybody needs to say something that sounds exciting, because if you don't get clicks and views. If you don't get clicks and views, you don't get, And that is not just YouTube. It is not just podcasts. That is mainstream media. A lot of people just jump on and glom on because a lot of people are insatiable. It's an insatiable need to hear more about certain crimes, like the Gabby Petito case, and now this Idaho 4 case. People can't stop. Oh, like the Kylie Ridley case. They just I'm now no better, right? Because look at me. What I'm saying is, though, even though we're interested and insatiable for more information, and we're all trying to, like, I write all these notes and try to connect these dots and what time matches what. Like, they're saying, oh, well, this person was shot on December 15th, and Brian and his dad took off from Pullman and fled to Pennsylvania. Okay, so we know he was in school and it was the end of the semester and he lived in student housing. I don't know if they have to leave or not, probably not, but his semester was over and it sounded like he planned to go home. Now, if he committed these crimes, it also sounded like he was cleaning that car and maybe going to sell it, because we know he switched the license plates from, again, could have been coincidence because it was his birthday, but switching the license plates in November to Washington plates, even though he's just a student there, from his Pennsylvania plates. Coincidence? Again, we don't know. But we do know that it takes, you can't switch time and space continuum. That's something you can't argue about. And we know that Brian and his dad were pulled over in Indiana, Hancock County, on December 15th. And we know that it takes over 24 hours to go from Pullman, Washington to Indiana. So, I mean, it takes, it's a day. It's 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. It takes 30 hours because it said a day and 6 hours. If you Google that, hashtag Google that shit. Well, Google mapped it. But, so when people are saying this person was shot by the SWAT team, this security guard, ex-vet, and he must have had something to do, or, you know, somehow Brian's involved with that guy and that had something to do with why they raced out of town, and why they mentioned it in their stop. I think they mentioned it, or the dad at least did, because the cop was from Indiana saying, what, Washington State, and the guy was giving him the only thing he could think of, and it had just occurred, the breaking news was right then, because it occurred in the overnight hours, and the campus was locked down. So they did not leave during when this started, like at 11 o'clock the night before, because they wouldn't have even been to Indiana until 11 p.m. December 15th, and they were pulled over during the daytime. So the timing doesn't work out. I don't know if that guy was, I don't know. All right. The Murdaugh case is in court, getting ready to go to trial. He goes to trial. I think it's January 23rd, I believe, or 25th, whatever is the Monday, in Waterboro, South Carolina. Apparently it's going to be lit. It's a very little town, so they're trying to get all their ducks in a row for parking and everything, and only, I believe, 250 people are allowed in the courthouse, maybe altogether, or the courtroom. I think it might be the courthouse, which is going to be a problem. So they're getting ready for that. What has happened recently was that, regarding the case that started it all, the Mallory Beach wrongful death suit, John Martin, one of the uncles, Alex's brother, is somehow representing. He got, Maggie's estate is out of it, and Buster, which is important for the family because he's the only living relative about this mess, he's out of it. Now only Paul's estate and Alec are still, well, along with the convenience store, involved in the lawsuit. So that's an interesting update there. The other case that's really big that's happening is the Vallow Daybell case. The Vallow Daybell case, what is happening new in that? Well, they are getting ready for trial to start the murders of Tammy Daybell, JJ, and Tylee in April. I need a drink, actually, before I talk about this one, because It is. So a number of filings came down. Lori Vallow's attorneys, number one, said, yeah, we don't think that the death penalty is appropriate for this situation because it's only reserved for the most heinous cases. All right. So if you remember how JJ was found, and if you remember how Tylee was found, those are her children, and you remember she refused to say where they were for months. So heinous. So the prosecution obviously filed a response, basically going check, check, and check. Yeah, heinous, disgusting. You deserve the death penalty. So that's where that went. Now that doesn't, but Judge Boyce still has to, I was going to say vote. He has to make a judgment on all these motions, right? So each side, one side starts the motion, the other side responds, and then the judge makes a decision. So we don't have the decision, but I'm with the prosecution on this one. Sorry, Lori. Although I don't really believe in the death penalty. Sorry, I don't always. But if there is a death penalty and it's based on something that is, an heinous and disgusting act, cutting up your own children and putting stuff around, like suffocating them with tape and putting things all around their head because I don't know what, they're in the way. That is disgusting. They're children. One was an autistic child, so that puts an even more extraordinary, it makes it worse as a crime because he was a person with special needs. And it should be worse. Not just a child, not just a 9-year-old, but a 9-year-old with autism. And yeah, sorry, heinous. I agree. Just my opinion. The other motion that Lori's attorneys made was that she wants to meet with Chad to discuss mediation or a settlement or get their story straight. And the thing is, the prosecution responded, look, mediation, you can't have mediation without both sides being there, meaning not just you two, but the people that you're going to mediate with for a sentence. And there's nothing on the table right now. And yeah, you can't have you two just talking because basically it puts you in the position of getting your story straight before court starting, and then you're putting your attorneys in a bad position because if they hear you talk and admit to what you're doing and trying to get a lie straight, they can't suborn perjury, and 2, you just made them witnesses, which you can't have your lawyer be your witness. Like, that's just a bad situation. So I'm with the prosecution on this too. That's dumb. If they want to make a plea, if there's a plea on the table, I guess they can all get together in a room, sure, with witnesses. Just to get together themselves. And Scott Reich did say, like, well, they could have an investigator. I don't think anybody's going to hold these people to, like, just if there's an extra person in the room. I think the lawyers can talk, sure. But I don't think, putting Lori and Chad together, you might as well throw kerosene in a match. Just my opinion. Not based on anything except, their past behavior when they're together. Alleged past behavior. All right, and the third thing that was filed was Lori filed an alibi. And her alibi is, I was not in the room when Tylee was killed or JJ was killed basically she said, at my brother's apartment, right next to her apartment. No, she wasn't there. She was with Melanie Gibb and David Warwick, which we know was the night that JJ was unalived, or she was with Chad. Oh, your co-conspirator? Yeah, good one to pick for your alibi. Honey, I don't even understand how your co-conspirator, you could put them as your alibi. Duh. I mean, if you committed a crime together, he's your alibi. Think that one through. How does that even make sense? I don't even know why that happened. Legally, I guess the lawyers that I listened to, Laura Hellis, Scott Reich, they were saying that perhaps making that alibi is a way to say, like, she didn't directly do it. But being a co-conspirator and basically knowing about a death occurring and not saying anything about what happened and helping in any way, like being quiet, like she did, that's all, you're the same as the person. Like, you've done the same crime. If you know about it, you don't do anything about it, just because you weren't physically in the room. But that's gonna, I think it's just one more thing they're gonna use to say no death penalty. Like, they're gonna say she was under Chad's mind control, you know. We know what they're probably gonna say, and this is my opinion, speculation, allegedly. Speaking of dead children, God, no wonder I have to drink for this podcast. Do you remember this past summer and fall, we were looking for little Quentin Simon, who was 20 months old, who had disappeared from his house. His mom's latest baby daddy, who she had a week-old infant, said he saw Quentin in the pack and play at 6:30 in the morning, but his phone was also the one, and I think it was him who called the babysitter and said, oh, the kids won't be coming over. Now, everybody in that family knew that Leilani had lost custody of her kids to her mom because she had an addiction problem and was an unfit parent. I'm not sure exactly what she did. It can't just be that her kids were born addicted to drugs, because her daughter was as well, and I believe she still at that time had custody of her daughter, and the older son was there, but somehow Quentin, 20 months, disappeared. Well, now she was supposed to have a preliminary trial this past week, and it never showed up, but instead on the 10th, and then from the 10th to the 13th, there were filings going back and forth between her lawyer, who's a defense attorney, public defender, and the state's attorneys. And, well, not the state's attorneys, I'm sorry, the DCSF, the Department of Children and Family Services in Georgia. Her attorneys wanted and filed a list of people that they want everything from the Department of Children's Services, including her and her mother, and some names that were redacted, which I am sure she's going to try to throw the babysitter next door who was doing all the TikToks under the bus. She's going to try to say, look at all these other people basically had issues with children's services, so why are you picking on me? Could have been any of them. Wasn't me. She's going to do the Shaggy defense, right? Wasn't me. I know you saw me taking the body out to the dumpster, but it wasn't me. So, DCSF quoted lots of law and said basically, look, these are all private. If the judge wants to look at these in camera, because that's how they requested it, they wanted to see in camera all this information, and they said absolutely not. It's all this is all, when you make complaints and when people are investigated, unless they're prosecuted, it is just an allegation. It is in DCF files, and you don't just show people that. You can't go for a fishing expedition. And so DCSF said no, and they want the court to look in camera to see if it's even relevant to the case. And I think that's probably what will happen. We will see. So I don't know if she waived her preliminary, or if these filings led to a continuance in her preliminary hearing. We will find out. Richard Allen, the Delphi suspect. So, like I said on my live, this is really a hard one for me, because there are definitely some things that say this is the guy, or to me it really says this guy seems to be involved. But I don't know enough, because we've only seen what's publicly been shown, and they've been very careful about what they're showing, to the point of almost he didn't know what he was accused of at first. He was arrested and arraigned, not publicly known. And this is a real high profile case. This was the murders of Abby Williams and Liberty German of Delphi, Indiana. This happened in 2017, and they were two girls who were unalived. They were grabbed, kidnapped, because kidnapping just means you move somebody from one location with intent to do something and without their permission. Like, they don't want to move. And it can be like 2 feet into a closet, or it can be like down a hill, which is what this has. They're saying Richard Allen is bridge guy. What is very interesting about this case is that the man's property, really close, if not on where the girls were found, they looked at him first because he had gotten an alibi before anybody even found the bodies. Now, maybe he knew they were looking for 2 little kids and just figured out, I don't want to get in trouble. they're going to come looking for me because it's my land. That could be an alternative case. He's dead now, but Ron Logan. And he seemed to sound just like the bridge guy, but people are like, no, it's not him. I thought it looked just like him, but, you know, I don't have forensic tools to look at pictures and voice analysis. Richard Allen had told the FBI, yeah, he was one of the people that came and said, yeah, I was in the park at this time, because they were asking who had seen anything. And people had seen him, among other people, walking, or somebody who looked like him, obviously, because they could just report him. They couldn't recognize his face particularly, but they said, this is what this man looked like. They were giving, you know, this, and this was when they first were in the, you know, when this first was being investigated. He seems to match this person that was in the park. The person wasn't seen doing anything, but the person seems to match the Snapchat video that I believe it was Libby took. Now, the problem I have is that we know the girls were there, going there to meet Anthony Schatz, who is not really Anthony Schatz. It was a picture associated with that name, a really good-looking, like, teenage kid, and that's who they thought they were meeting. And it turned out to be associated with a person who, and we call it corn here, you know, little, like, kids like corn, right? Well, this kid liked kitty corn a lot, and he ran this account, which he said his dad had the password too. Now, he's in jail for liking corn too much, because, you know, corn that young is illegal. His name is Keegan Klein. Interestingly enough, his case was going to court, but it got stopped. He seemed to be making a plea deal. We don't know what about, but then suddenly everything got hot in the case. They were down looking in an area. They seemed to have found something. Then they went to Richard Allen's house. They did a search there, and then a week later he was arrested. So we don't know all the information of what happened. We know he seems to have been in the park. And then there's a lot of other stuff that I don't know if it's hard evidence, but we will see. Or if he's involved in something bigger and more nefarious with Keegan Klein and perhaps others, which I kind of think he's a pharmacist, and he did photos, because we know he gave Libby's or Abby's, which one of them, their family's photos free at the CVS where he worked in the pharmacy. So did he see pictures? Was he into pictures maybe? Could he then be bribed or extorted to go do something in a park for somebody else to help out? We don't know. We do know now, they didn't release it before, that Abby or Libby, one of them says something, it sounds like it says he's got a gun. And they did find a ammunition from that looks and has similar markings to one of his weapons that could have, but it wasn't shot. It was just like cycled through the gun. And people are arguing about if the forensic on just a cycling would be enough to identify a ballistics, not like it was shot, which gives you like 3 points, like a pinpoint, landing grooves, and something else. So, do we want it to be him? Sure. We want whoever did this. You know, that's the danger, right? And all these things, we don't know enough because we only know one side until it's actually gone through court, until there's actual evidence being, talked about by witnesses and or the people who are analyzing actual physical things. So we are going to be watching this. His bond hearing is coming up. He's also has a public defender, Sadie Mae. His bond hearing, his bond hearing is going to be in February because his public defenders are saying like this is not enough to hold him on the bond that you have. Because I think, I don't know if it's a cash bond or a no-hold bond right now. I mean, he's probably in danger if he gets out. So he might be safer in prison. But he does have a bond hearing coming up. And then his lawyers want the discovery in the case. There's still 1,000 documents outstanding. And but the judge basically said, look, you guys have been working together, so hopefully you can continue to work together well. And she didn't make any like formal judgment. She just said that. So hopefully that all works out, and we will hear more about that case soon. And then our 10th case is the let's take a sec. The Larry Miliete case. Larry Miliete is accused of unaliving his wife January 7th of 2021. Now, he was arrested for this crime in October of last year, 2022. And he's been in jail waiting. He also has a public defender. He is now in his preliminary trial. It means he is going to try to say this shouldn't go to an actual trial. That's what the preliminary hearing is. A judge is watching and will judge the evidence of both sides to see, is there enough evidence to bind him over. So we're going to see, there was 3 days of court this past week. Mary Chris, the sister, and her younger brother, whose name starts with a T, and I have to practice saying it, so I don't want to butcher it anyway, so I'm just going to call him T right now. They both gave great testimony. They were the meat so far of Maya's wanting to be divorced. They had text messages that she needed $10,000 for the lawyer. Oh, the lawyer was, I think that was one of the first people, though. The lawyer's person who took all the information about her coming in, they testified. And she was the last, the lawyer's office was the last phone call made on her phone. So this isn't just like they weren't having a great relationship and then where'd she go? There is, she told people she wanted to leave and said to her sister, if anything happens to me, look at Larry. She was making plans to divorce him, like real plans, like she needed money. She had, I'm trying to think if she told people, he had choked her before. So there was domestic violence, and we know that there's a correlation between physical violence and then later on having an unaliving when somebody's angry. They went to look for her, and the husband never cared to look. Larry was not interested. He basically told the sister, Mary Chris, look, I'm going to look after my kids and you can look for Maya. Then this evidence is going to pile up. So right now, what we know from what we heard is that she was getting a divorce. She wanted a divorce. Their marriage was falling apart. She thought he was overly controlling. Oh, one of the interesting facts is Maya Miliete made $150,000 per year, but she never had money on her. Her husband didn't want her to spend the money. Like, this guy kept tabs on her, very controlling. He controlled the money. One of the questions the defense attorney asked, I believe the sister, was, so Maya didn't carry U.S. currency? You know, implying that maybe she had foreign currency because maybe they originally came from the Philippines and maybe Maya was in the Philippines or somewhere foreign. No. Basically, Maya didn't carry money because Larry was tracking everything she did. And the brother said similar things, as well as he was a little bit closer to Larry, and he reported that when he went over to look for Maya, Larry had been doing cleaning, pulling appliances like 2 feet out of the wall, and Larry sort of intimated that maybe Maya was in the master bedroom, but the brother couldn't get in there. It was all dark. He couldn't get in there. It was locked. We'll hear more. So that case is one of them where there might not be a body, but we're seeing evidence start to pile up, which I believe will lead everybody to a specific conclusion as to if the suspect is actually a suspect. And that's my opinion, just my speculation. He's innocent until he's proven guilty. He's not even gone to trial yet. So, and the last case to talk about this week to catch you up is Jen Shah's celebrity case. Jen Shah is, if you don't know, a Salt Lake housewife on the Bravo network of the Housewives of, and it's the Housewives of Salt Lake. And she had a fabulous lifestyle. She had a Shaw Chalet and all this money, and was a businesswoman. It was kind of not clear exactly what her business was, but she had like a special, like a people who worked with her and an entourage. Well, what we found out, now she's pled guilty, that she defrauded people over the age of 55 through a scheme. And what was the amount of money, you guys? Like I said, I'll do a little specific thing on it, but it is amazing. It is. Okay, so she was sentenced to she could have been sentenced to 30 years if she would have gone to trial, but instead she pled. And her team wanted 3, they said she should get 3 years. The judge gave her 6.5 years. This is in New York City. So it's 78 months. And then she'll have like 5 years of probation. She has to report at a later date. That later date is February 17th. She will surrender to prison. She also, besides jail, has to forfeit $6.5 million, 30 luxury items, 78 counterfeit luxury items. And she has to pay restitution up to $9.5 million. So she's going to be busy. All right, so I tried to be quick about it. So that's my update, episode 39. And now I'm going to try to do like little more detailed ones of the ones you guys probably want to know more about. Maybe not. I don't know. But don't forget, True Crime Grapevine will be doing nightly nightcaps around 8:39 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every weekend night, Monday through Friday. And then I'll do a taping like this of the episode, maybe try to do like little more detailed files. And I really appreciate you guys sticking around. I'm trying to figure out my technology. That's my goal for this year. But until then, I thought I would upload live, but I'm not sure everybody finds me. So tell everybody about the True Crime Grapevine. You know, there's so much crime and not enough time, so I will be doing those nightly lives. You can watch them on replay. So go over, to my channel and hit the likes. Please subscribe. That really helps. And have a great, safe week, and I'll catch up with you. I'll see you live on Monday. I'll be uploading the rest of these files throughout the last week, and have a good week. All right? Bye.